from San Diego Hort Hat, so you know I'm a Hort member. At any rate, I'm going to introduce Nancy Carroll Carter. Many of you may know Nancy from her work with the San Diego Floral Association, Balboa Park, and as a longtime member and previous speaker of the San Diego Horticultural Society. She's also a fellow Mission Hills resident that I've known for over 15 years. Nancy Carroll Carter moved to San Diego in 1987 after being recruited by the University of San Diego to serve as professor of law and director of Legal Research Center, and after an extensive 38 career in legal education culminating at the University of San Diego, Nancy retired and focused her attention on volunteerism as well as historical research and writing, with special emphasis on San Diego, Balboa Park, and the region's rich horticulture and floriculture. One of Nancy's foremost research endeavors about Balboa Park has been her ongoing study of the legendary horticulturist Kate O. Sessions, who is commonly regarded as the mother of Balboa Park and the driving force behind the park's major landscape plan. Nancy has expanded the breadth of her research to examine additional individuals that have contributed to the development of Balboa Park over the past century and established herself as an expert as Balboa Park's development, land use, public policy, and historical figures. She is also a renowned published editor, contributing regularly to publications such as San Diego History Journal, Pacific Horticulture, and the California Garden, which is the quarterly publication of the San Diego Floral Association. She was interviewed by Nan Sermon for the PBS show A Growing Passion for episodes about Balboa Park Centennial in 2015. Nancy has served as vice president of the California Garden and Landscape History Society and treasurer of the San Diego Floral Association, as well as a member of Friends of Balboa Park Horticulture Committee and Balboa Park Conservancy Projects Committee. On October 13th of 2015, Friends of Balboa Park presented Nancy with the 2015 Millennium Award, which is given each year to an individual or organization that exhibits great dedication to the betterment of Balboa Park. On the same day, in recognition of Nancy Carroll Carter's many years of dedicated research and service to Balboa Park and San Diego, the City of San Diego, by the Council of the City of San Diego, declared October 13th, 2015 as Nancy Carroll Carter Day in the City of San Diego. We are honored to have Nancy as our August speaker. Please join me in welcoming Nancy to the Zoom stage.
Thank you. I can honestly say that is the most lengthy introduction I've ever received. Thank you very much, Jim. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get us going. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining in this evening and for the invitation to discuss one of my heroines, the remarkable Catherine Olivia Sessions. I've always admired her independence and bravery and fortitude. Kate Sessions came of age in the Victorian era, but she ignored the expectations of how women were supposed to live in the late 1800s. She forged an unconventional path, and through her grit and single-mindedness became a florist, plant nursery owner, garden designer, and talented horticulturalist. She was the captain of her own ship. Despite the demands of a one-person business, Kate Sessions also immersed herself in the larger world, leaving her mark with countless contributions to her community and to the field of horticulture. It was not always an easy road. In at least one instance, she was the only woman on a program of 16 speakers at a horticulture convention. But she was undaunted. She fearlessly made the life she wanted, a life among plants and gardens and the people who shared her passion for horticulture. Sessions spent her entire working life in San Diego, but her influence was much wider. She was instrumental in changing the horticultural look and feel of all of Southern California, and her experimentation brought scores of new plants into our gardens. Her garden design work is still written about today because it was an early celebration of the unique Mediterranean growing conditions in our region. About 81 years ago, on March 31st, 1939, Kate Sessions had a very special appointment in Pasadena. She was the guest of honor at a luncheon held at the Huntington Hotel. Then she joined others at the Fannie E. Morrison Horticultural Center. Well, what was the occasion? The 82-year-old Kate Sessions was in town to collect a medal, namely the Meyer Medal, an international horticulture prize honoring her distinguished service in plant introduction and experimental growing. The award honors Frank N. Meyer, an intrepid plant explorer for the United States Department of Agriculture. This memorial prize was created in 1920 after he died while on his 4th China expedition. We all must think kindly of him when we enjoy a Meyer lemon. He brought that plant to the United States along with hundreds of other economically important plants. When awarded the 15th Meyer Medal, Kate Sessions joined a list of eminent horticulturalists who had previously been honored. She was the first woman to win this international recognition, and another woman was not awarded a Meyer Medal for 42 years, not until 1971. When Kate Sessions accepted her medal, she had just one more year to live. So in retrospect, this award was a capstone upon her life and achievements in horticulture. But the award raises a big question. How did the owner of a small San Diego plant nursery come to the attention of the influential East Coast officials who annually conferred the Meyer Medal? It is true that Kate Sessions achieved a level of fame in our region, but how did she become so well known to the larger world of horticulture? Well, tonight I'm going to address that question, first by presenting an overview of Sessions' life, taking a look at her business career, probing her horticultural talents, and then introducing some people within her professional network. This network has never been fully explored, but Kate Sessions was at the center of a worldwide web of botanists, plant explorers, university professors, nursery owners, USDA officials, garden writers, park and arboretum personnel, and other horticulturalists with whom she shared plants and knowledge. She knew them and they knew her work. This is a quick overview of Kate Sessions' life. Well, it will be, yeah, here we are. She was born in 1857 to Connecticut Yankees who had made their way to California during the gold rush. Kate Sessions' father and uncles ran a drayage business that used large workhorses. And when Kate Sessions was still a young girl, her family moved to an Oakland farm and horse ranch. The family wasn't wealthy, but they did have a very comfortable life. Kate spent her free time riding her pony in the Oakland Hills, collecting wildflowers, starting her fern collection, and helping her mother in the family garden. Her parents were willing to educate their daughter. She first attended a business course in San Francisco, and she was one of 2 women in that class. But then she matriculated at the University of California, graduating in 1881. At that time, students simply chose to study the classics curriculum or the science curriculum. Kate chose science, and she took chemistry classes and wrote a paper on the natural sciences. Kate Sessions did some traveling in her life, first going to the Sandwich Islands, otherwise known as Hawaii, as a high school graduation present, and returning to those islands on a sentimental trip 50 years later. She also traveled in Mexico and took an extended tour in Europe. She taught briefly in the Oakland schools and at Russ School in San Diego, but the majority of her work life was as a florist and nursery owner and maker of gardens. She died in 1940 after contracting pneumonia. Here is Kate with her family at home in Oakland. Note that nice looking garden, by the way. Sessions had just one sibling, her younger brother, Frank. In time, her parents and brother sold the Oakland property and joined her here in San Diego. Frank is the father of Milton Sessions, who became a well-known landscape architect in his own right. This photograph is not precisely dated, but I think there's a good chance that it was taken on the occasion of Kate's college graduation in 1881, when a special class day was held for friends and family. On the university campus, Kate was known as a good student, as well as being vivacious, popular, and fun-loving. After college, she unsuccessfully tried to find work as a banker or a chemist, finally defaulting to the field most open to women. She became a teacher in Oakland, then moved to San Diego in 1884 to teach math and serve as an assistant principal. And here she is under the green arrow, looking the proper teacher and Victorian lady at San Diego's first high school. But when given an opportunity to go into business, Kate Sessions quickly ditched her teaching career. She was brought into the florist and nursery business by an experienced older couple, the Blaisdells, who had purchased the old San Diego nursery. After 2 years, she left that partnership, and for the next 53 years, Kate Sessions ran her own business. This was her vehicle for a life devoted to plants, gardens, community service, and the wider horticultural world. I've been trying to get a sense of who Kate Sessions really was for about 20 years. When someone becomes an icon, it is hard to learn what the person was really like. But there are many contemporary descriptions of Kate Sessions. She was seen as a serious person who made a strong first impression. She was said to have a warm and magnetic personality. She was drawn to children, and they were drawn to her. She was a devoted daughter and sister. People recognized her expertise and drive. Well, in looking further for Kate's personality, I've turned to sources like the portraits that were painted of her. And I always have called this one the granny portrait. I just don't think this captures her personality. I also do not think she was this rather morose, lifeless character either. So I think we get a better sense of her in photographs. And this one is her favorite picture of herself, taken in 1919 when she was 62 years old. And here is the somewhat younger, straightforward businesswoman. The picture on the left is one we see a lot. She's posing by a blooming acacia, one of her favorite trees. And on the right, judging a flower show, which she did frequently. And she also spoke to a lot of garden clubs and other organizations. This is one of my favorites, Kate around 1911, with a wagon decorated for a parade. She's wearing her normal work clothes, a hat, men's work boots, and a long skirt with this great big pocket right here so that she could carry her tools and any cuttings she wanted to take, and seeds and rock candy. She never modernized this work costume, so as fashions changed, she did seem increasingly eccentric. She did not marry, and she was always known as Miss Sessions, or to her friends, KOS. It was claimed that she turned down 2 proposals of marriage, but we do not know if this is true. What we do know is that Sessions thrived on her independence, loved being free from cooking and housework, and often commented on the blessings of a career that allowed her to wear comfortable shoes. Well, looking back on her life in business and civic affairs, the first thing to note is the longevity of her business. The survival of a one-person business for more than 50 years is a remarkable record, even without considering the susceptibility of nurseries to adverse weather and economic downturns. As a consequence of changing times and property development, the Sessions Nursery operated in 4 different locations over the years, and we'll take a look at all of them. Her first retail business was from this small downtown florist shop on 5th Avenue with a few potted plants and trees for sale. She grew plants and flowers across the bay on Coronado, where she had a few acres of growing grounds near the ferry landing. When the Hotel Del opened in 1888, surrounding land prices shot up. Kate's land became much too valuable to use for growing fields. In any case, she wanted to expand her retail nursery operation and grow more stock. She made a proposal to the city of San Diego that resulted in a public-private development scheme for City Park, later renamed Balboa Park. In 1892, she moved her nursery to the northwest corner of the largely undeveloped park. She was named city gardener, and her 10-year lease agreement called for an annual payment of 400 trees. She was to plant 100 trees annually in Balboa Park and furnish 300 additional trees to the city. She was also obligated to establish an experimental garden. During this time, she became a test grower for the United States Department of Agriculture, which was importing plants from all over the world. Test growers across the country planted the new specimens and reported on their viability in different regions of the country. This is one way that Kate Sessions acquired many of the exotics she popularized in Southern California, like the jacaranda tree from Brazil, the Atlas cedar from Morocco, and many eucalyptus varieties from Australia. The park was almost a blank canvas at this time. Her nursery, with its seasonal blooming flowers and healthy trees, acted as a demonstration garden, helping to convince skeptical San Diegans that their large but almost barren city park did have some horticultural potential and was worth saving from the avaricious and ever-circling real estate developers who were always trying to buy a big chunk of the park. Her planting of more than 1,000 trees in the park and her advocacy for preserving park land earned Kate Sessions the title, the Mother of Balboa Park. When her 10-year lease in City Park expired in 1903, Kate Sessions established her business in the Mission Hills district, where she had wisely invested in land. Now an established old neighborhood of San Diego, Mission Hills was almost completely undeveloped when Kate moved her nursery there. In fact, the distance from housing and business areas convinced her to purchase a 1902 Maxwell automobile. She was one of the first women in San Diego to buy a car. In another first, Kate and her brother Frank inaugurated Southern California's commercial poinsettia business in Mission Hills. This was more than a decade before the Ecke family of poinsettia hybridizers came to San Diego County. The siblings grew acres of poinsettias for seasonal sales. Before Christmas, the flowers were cut, packed, and shipped to Los Angeles, San Francisco, and even the Midwest. This whole story is told in a 1912 article in Sunset magazine. In Mission Hills, residential development once again caught up with Kate Sessions. She made quite a profit when her growing grounds sold off for housing development. By 1926, she was operating at her fourth and final business location, running the Kate O. Sessions Pacific Beach Nursery. She planted this now huge tipuano tree outside her sales office. In recent years, locals managed to save this tree when the streets were being widened. In 1961, her nursery site was designated as a state historic site, and this plaque was installed under the tipo tree, which blooms abundantly with these golden flowers. Well, in assessing Kate Sessions as a businesswoman, it is important to distinguish her ability to build a brand as opposed to her ultimate financial success. Kate Sessions did a top-notch job of creating and enhancing her business reputation. Her nursery was known for having an unusual variety of plants and as a place where you could get all the advice you needed to grow them. Almost everyone in San Diego knew about Kate and her florist and nursery business. This was certainly true among the movers and shakers in town, who said that in San Diego, no one was married or buried unless Kate Sessions provided the flowers. In every other respect, Kate Sessions was not a very good businesswoman. Because she cared absolutely nothing about money, she did not focus on making a profit. She stayed in business to do the work she loved, and she never worried about getting rich. Besides, she was too busy saving the world. Kate Sessions was a tireless civic activist, working for community beautification and preservation of priceless natural features in our region. Just a few of her activities will illustrate. She helped to organize San Diego's first observance of Arbor Day in 1904, an event that brought hundreds of school children into Balboa Park to plant trees. She personally planted her favorite queen palms around the perimeter of the downtown city plaza, here in front of the U.S. Grand Hotel, and lobbied for the planting of street trees, exhorting city councils all over Southern California to improve their towns with tree planting. She joined with others in the San Diego Floral Association to save this beautiful grove of native oak trees in East San Diego County. It was being destroyed for firewood. Today it is part of the El Monte Oaks County Park. She wrote long editorials for the newspapers and helped to rally opposition to a San Diego plan that would have built a highway through a dense coastal stand of rare Torrey pines. She bemoaned the loss of California's rich population of wildflowers and encouraged their preservation and planting. And finally, when World War I led to the construction of a large military camp on a bald, dry mesa in San Diego, she led a campaign to brighten the lives of recruits by planting bulbs at Camp Kearney. Well, turning now to Kate as a horticulturalist, the trip she made after high school was a great influence. She never forgot that trip to Hawaii. The beauty of the islands inspired her career in horticulture and her belief that trees and plants and flowers can be transformative. When she moved to San Diego and saw that bougainvillea and poinsettias were growing here, just as in Hawaii, she wondered if some of the other beautiful plants she saw on the islands might thrive in San Diego. While this notion inspired her experiments with exotic plant materials, her approach quickly became more nuanced. She was fascinated by the microclimates around San Diego County and made a study of the soils. Most importantly, she became a realist about water. She developed a horticultural philosophy calling for the use of plants appropriate to the local growing conditions. She discouraged grassy lawns because of their water requirements, and she was an early enthusiast for the use of native plants and interesting succulents in home gardens. As a horticulturalist, Kate was first and foremost a practical grower and experimenter. Every account describes her as having a magic green thumb. It seems that she could make anything grow and coax any seed into life. In addition to the plants she received as a test grower for the Department of Agriculture, she initiated exchanges with other nurseries and botanical gardens across the United States and around the world. Another aspect of Sessions as a horticulturalist is her work as a student, educator, and author. She was a great user of the public library and pored over new books on plants, as well as constantly using classic reference works. In turn, she taught others through informal mentoring and formal classes, walking tours, lectures, and with her prolific writing. In 1907, she helped to found the San Diego Floral Association, then as now, dedicated to promoting the knowledge and appreciation of horticulture in our region. In furtherance of its educational mission, the Floral Association began publishing California Garden in 1909, a magazine that has been continuously published in San Diego for 111 years. Sessions wrote newspaper columns and contributed to a few national publications, but the bulk of her writing was published by the Floral Association magazine. Here we are looking at a facsimile of the first issue of California Garden, Volume 1, Number 1, published July 1909, and on the right is the first of 260 articles Kate Sessions published in California Garden over a 30-year period. When we study the work of past horticulturalists, we do not always have an extensive record of their plant interest, their growing tips and techniques, their opinions, and even their hobby horses. But we can all take a deep dive into the thinking of Kate Sessions through her writing. Her advice remains useful, and her lucid prose is a pleasure to read. There is also a lot of San Diego history to be found within her articles. In 1998, recognizing the importance of this literary legacy, the Floral Association gathered all the Sessions articles into a book, the one on the left. A new edition was published this year, and I was given permission as a part of this talk to include a sales pitch for that book. Last year, a team of San Diego Floral Association volunteers edited this new edition of the complete writings of Kate Sessions in California Garden. It has all of her articles, information about her life, vintage ads from her nursery business, and many photographs not previously published. Both the book and California Garden magazine can be ordered online from the San Diego Floral website, sdfloral.org. In addition to her studious research and writing, Kate expanded her knowledge and shared her experience through an extensive professional network of horticultural experts, many of whom were good friends as well as professional colleagues. This is a selection of luminaries in Kate Sessions' deep web. There are so many others that could be listed, and there's so much to say about each of these, but this group will illustrate the level on which Kate Sessions was operating. Kate Sessions met Mr. Huntington and his estate manager, William Hertrich, when they came shopping for palm trees at her nursery in Mission Hills. They wanted large palms and purchased several that were shipped to the Huntington Ranch on railway flat cars. Thereafter, Hertrich and Sessions kept up an acquaintance. For many years, Kate Sessions shared any interesting plant or palm that came her way with the Huntington Garden. In return, she was given samples of new plant finds they came across and offered private tours of the famous Huntington Gardens as they developed. She had a cousin in Pasadena and often went there to visit nurseries or go to flower shows, and she was often an invited speaker at garden clubs and other groups. John McLaren of San Francisco's Golden Gate Park was a special friend and advisor over many years. He stayed in his position for 50 years. She visited his family, and he gave her personal tours of the park when she visited San Francisco. And she, in turn, hosted him in San Diego. They traded newfound plants for north-south testing, and he sent young assistants to San Diego to learn from her. Eric Walther was one of them. He began his long career at Golden Gate Park in 1918. His intelligence and diligence soon came to the notice of John McLaren. Walther became a trusted assistant to the steely, stern park superintendent and was eventually charged with creating Golden Gate Park's Arboretum. Walther had a passion for magnolias and eventually brought 80 different varieties into the collection at Golden Gate Park. McLaren sent him to San Diego to meet and confer with Kate Sessions on more than one occasion. She recruited him to write for California Garden magazine, and they first bonded over ice plants, which both were investigating and importing. They also had a mutual interest in succulents. Walther was an early and very active member of the Cactus and Succulent Society of America. But the way he won my heart is when I learned that he imported the first donkey tail or burro tail plant to the United States after finding it in Mexico in 1935. Kate Sessions was very quick to pick up on the treasures to be found in the Japanese nurseries in the Bay Area. Many of her bamboos and chrysanthemums came from these nurseries, and she was always on the outlook for new plants and new treasures. She started this very early because the D'Amato brothers started their business in Oakland in the 1880s. I don't have any photographs of them, so this is Toichi D'Amato, second generation, literally born at the nursery in Oakland, and he became its subsequent operator. When the most famous botanical couple in the entire United States moved to San Diego in 1894, they, of course, became friends with Kate Sessions. Catherine Brandagee was the second woman in the entire United States to hold a professional position in botany. She had been hired at the California Academy of Sciences as the curator of botany. And she was the third woman to graduate from a California medical school. T.S. Brandagees was trained as a civil engineer at the Yale Technology School, and he went on a lot of Western expeditions and surveying trips, but his true love was botany. And after he inherited some money, he was able to become a full-time botanist. He is still considered one of the top 5 botanists to have collected in Mexico. Here in San Diego, they created their own botanical garden, and here is Catherine Brandagees working in that garden with their house in the background. And they also built the largest private herbarium in the nation. Their work elevated the reputation of West Coast botanical science. They churned out paper after paper in scientific journals. And at that time, botanical science was completely dominated by the East Coast. I threw in this picture of their house because this is a place that you can actually go see right here in San Diego. When they moved down here, they first built a small building to house their herbarium, and they lived in a tent. And then later they were able to add on to that building for their house. And this is showing it before the garden has really grown up. But this building is at the Self-Realization Fellowship on First Avenue in Bankers Hill. You will see this exact building. It's now painted white. But that is where they lived and where they created this wonderful botanical garden, was on First Avenue near Redwood. They spent most of their time creating these botanical specimens for their herbarium. Catherine Brandagees was a very careful classifier of plants. And here are just a few of the plants that carry Mr. Brandagees' name. Many scientific names of plants, you will find Brandagees in the name. I would love to tell you this is Kate Sessions, but this is actually Catherine Brandagees, but it's showing her in Mexico on one of their plant hunting expeditions. And Kate Sessions went on her one and only plant hunting expedition with T.S. Brandagees. They traveled to San Jose del Cabo on the Baja Peninsula and returned with a new palm tree for the United States. She gave the first of these palm trees to the Huntington Garden. She had returned with 5 small trees and a huge seed collection. From the seed, she raised hundreds of these new palms. San Diego still has the largest plantation of this palm species in the United States. It is in Balboa Park near the Bowling Greens and was planted in 1914 with 325 palms. Alice Eastwood was Catherine Brandagees' protege at the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco, and Eastwood became the head of the botany department in 1894 and worked until her retirement at age 90. She was a productive and beloved California scientist, and she was also Kate Sessions' closest professional friend. They visited each other when possible, and I found 37 of Kate Sessions' letters in the Eastwood archive in San Francisco. In 1927, they collaborated on the scientific publication of a San Diego native species new to science. Alice Eastwood wrote the plant's botanical gave the plant its botanical name, and published its scientific description in the Academy of Sciences Proceedings. And here is the beautiful native lilac, a plant Kate Sessions domesticated and brought into the nursery trade. Francisco Franceschi ran a nursery in Santa Barbara and is credited with importing more plants to the United States than any other one person. For that, he received the 3rd Meyer Medal ever presented. The Franceschi Archive at UC Berkeley has dozens of postcards from Kate Sessions showing how the two nursery owners traded plants back and forth to meet customer demand. They sent shipments on the coastal steamer. She familiarized herself with his new imports when she was passing through Santa Barbara, going back and forth to San Francisco. She often stayed at the Franceschi family home. The now ubiquitous tree, once known as Podocarpus gracilior, was brought south when Kate Sessions got 3 of the trees grown from seed at the Franceschi nursery. Kate brought the first 3 of these to San Diego. Another close friend was Lester Roundtree, the celebrated field botanist and early champion of California native plants. Her lively style and genuine passion made her a popular author and speaker, and her 1936 book on native plants, The Hardy Californians, is a classic. Well, we could all learn a lot about car camping from Lester Roundtree. There she is sitting on that convenient running board that we no longer have, holding her plant presses. She spent months every year following the wildflower bloom from desert to mountains. She loved the freedom of traveling alone and once described the joys of dancing in the rain in the high Sierras without the hindrance of clothing. She and Kate learned from each other, and Lester Roundtree wrote that the Sessions Nursery was a mecca for plant lovers, a place to find the unusual, the new, and the worthy. Lester Roundtree visited Kate Sessions on her deathbed in 1940 and wrote a heartfelt tribute to her after Kate had died. Hugh Evans came from England to the San Luis Rey area when he was just 18 years old. He met Kate Sessions in 1896. He later wrote that she was a handsome and vital woman whom it was a privilege to know, and that he was indebted to her for all the plant information she passed on. Hugh Evans moved to Santa Monica, but was a visitor to San Diego over many years. He contributed to California Garden magazine and spoke to the San Diego Floral Association. He visited Sessions in her home and at her business, keeping up with the new plants she was bringing into cultivation. When he made a lot of money in the booming Los Angeles real estate market, he became an obsessive plant importer, creating a fabulous garden at his large Santa Monica home. He grew 50 different bougainvillea, 150 different hibiscus, and every kind of coral tree. After an early failure in the nursery business, he opened the ultimately famous Evans and Reeves Nursery in 1936, serving clients like Walt Disney, Clark Gable, and Elizabeth Taylor. He and Sessions always tried to surprise each other with a new plant. And like Sessions, Hugh Evans is on every list of the horticulturalists who shaped Southern California landscaping. I mentioned that Kate Sessions was a test grower for the Department of Agriculture, trying out new imported plants. David Fairchild was the head of the Plant Exploration Office at the United States Department of Agriculture. And when he came on an official USDA inspection tour in 1919, Kate was his guide to all things horticultural in San Diego County. Afterwards, they began a 20-year correspondence. My greatest Kate Sessions research find was the discovery of 72 of her letters at the Fairchild Archive. I also found the photo that I showed you earlier that Kate Sessions said was her favorite picture of herself. David Fairchild established and headed the Office of Foreign Plant Introduction, and he himself was a world traveler and plant hunter. It is no exaggeration to say that his work permanently altered the American diet and national horticulture and agriculture. If you have any interest in this area, he is someone you would love getting to know. His story is enriched by the fact that his father-in-law was Alexander Graham Bell. There's a recent book out about him there on the right, and his own two books are great reads. One last David Fairchild item. Last summer, I booked a research appointment at the Library and Archives of Kew Gardens outside London. I was looking for any possible correspondence or other Kate Sessions information. What I found was a David Fairchild letter, and it had a postscript about Kate Sessions, which I've written out here. Would you be good enough to hand the enclosed to Mr. Bean? It relates to a correspondent of mine in San Diego about a plant that a correspondent of mine in San Diego is very anxious to get. Miss Kate Sessions, the best gardener we have in Southern California, I think. Well, here is Mr. Bean, a 40-year veteran of Kew Gardens, holding one of his most famous books. Now, unfortunately, we do not know what plant Kate was seeking or whether Mr. Bean was able to help her out. Charles Sprague Sargent, another Meyer Medal recipient, was the head of Harvard's Arnold Arboretum for 54 years. When he visited San Diego, he went to see Kate Sessions. And when he or his successor, E.W. Wilson, were trying to trace an obscure California native plant for Harvard, Kate would be asked to secure a sample. She also, over many years, traded seeds with the famous Arnold Arboretum plant propagator, William Judd. Liberty Hyde Bailey was one of the most famous horticulturalists of the 20th century. He was an educator and botanist who wrote major horticultural reference works that are still used. When he came to San Diego to study palms in 1926 and 1937, it was Kate Sessions who led him to examples of the rare specimens he needed for type study, and she provided her famous general horticultural tour of the region. And this is one of the places that they looked for palms. Palm Canyon in its earlier days was an important botanical garden for anyone in the United States who studied palms. In 1925, Kate Sessions was able to take a long break from her business. She traveled to Europe for 7 months, visiting gardens and meeting horticulturalists in several countries. She later told a friend that she was surprised by how well known she was in Europe. In England, she visited some estate gardens, went to the Chelsea Flower Show, visited Kew Gardens, and she had a tour of the gardens and ate lunch here at Gravetie Manor, the home of William Robinson. William Robinson was England's most influential garden writer. He famously freed English gardens from the stranglehold of Victorian formalism and set the tone, along with his friend Gertrude Jekyll, for the arts and crafts garden movement and its modern successors. Kate Sessions also met Henry Corvin, famous for his studies of alpine flowers. He made rock gardens so trendy that everyone had to have one. When Corvin came to America on a lecture tour, he was escorted in San Diego to the local horticultural sites by Kate Sessions. And here they are visiting that El Monte Oak Grove in East San Diego County mentioned earlier. Well, Kate Sessions was sold on the idea after his trip of a San Diego rock garden, claiming that East San Diego County provided the ideal terrain. This is one of her rare failures. She never got any interest in this particular idea. Kate Sessions thought it was neighborly, and that was the word she used, to trade seeds with places that had similar climates. She had a particularly successful trade going with the Botanical Garden in Cape Town, South Africa. In 1936, the superintendent reported to her on the successful cultivation of California native plants supplied earlier by Sessions in seed packets. In response, she got seed packets from South Africa. Oops, sorry. Near the end of her life, Kate Sessions wrote of her aching back and her wish to be 20 years younger so that she could bring more energy to her work with plants. And these last years, she was at least gratified by the realization of two projects she had long championed. An aloe and agave garden was planted in 1932 in Balboa Park. This garden has not survived. It was lost when Park Boulevard was widened, but it stood north of the present desert garden. Many of Kate Sessions' own aloes and agaves were planted in this garden. She also saw the realization of a long-term idea to have a first-rate cactus garden planted in Balboa Park. She first started talking about this in 1889, but it wasn't until the 1935 exposition in Balboa Park that this was done. If you're not oriented, this is the Cabrillo Bridge right here. And about 20 of these saguaro cactus were sent from Arizona to the cactus garden. She was also feted in the city of her birth when invited to help break ground for the Horticulture building at the 1939 Golden Gate Exposition in San Francisco. Kate Sessions was invited as the representative of Southern California horticulture, and she was described as the Dean of Horticulture. Here she is with her buddies, John McLaren and Alice Eastwood. And a funny story about this is that Kate Sessions took her own shovel on the train to San Francisco. She was afraid they would give her something very delicate that couldn't get the job done. In early 1939, while watering her own garden, Kate Sessions suffered a broken hip. She was bedridden in an uncomfortable body cast and never left the hospital, succumbing to pneumonia in March 1940 at the age of 83. Here are some of the ways Kate Sessions is remembered in San Diego. A Pacific Beach neighborhood school was named after her in 1956, and in 1998, a bronze statue of her was placed at the Laurel Street entrance to Balboa Park. Several plant cultivars have been named in her honor, and she was inducted into the San Diego Women's Hall of Fame. There's a Kate Sessions biography, 2 college theses, 2 children's books, and the published collection of Kate Sessions' writings that I earlier mentioned. Among all the ways to remember Kate Sessions, I think she would be most pleased to know that Balboa Park is thriving and recognized as one of the great urban spaces in the world. She would surely love to know that some of the trees she planted in the park still offer shade and beauty. Likewise, she would appreciate the beautiful neighborhood park that carries her name and its view. Well, Kate Sessions was not a religious person, but she once joked that she would be willing to accept the idea of reincarnation if she could return as a black swan living outside London in Kew Gardens. Well, I appreciate the sentiment, but I much prefer to think of Kate Sessions here among us, where her legacy remains so vital. All we really have to do to remember Kate Sessions is to walk outside and look around. Thank you very much. I'm going to be happy to take questions.
Okay, so I think the best thing to do is just, everybody's pretty much still muted. I would just say unmute yourself and ask. I mean, there's 93 people on the call. That's very impressive. So do we have a first question? First, 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 first,
I had a question. That was a wonderful talk. And
Thank
I
you.
was just curious, how long did it take you to do all that?
To do the talk?
Yes.
Oh, I think
Well, I have to confess that PowerPoint presentations take a very long time, but I have done several presentations on Kate's sessions, so sometimes I can reuse some of the things I've put together earlier. But this idea of looking at her professional network and her contacts with all these horticulturalists, that's really rather new. And there's been no history written about this. So one of the reasons that I've gotten started on this path is I'd really like to write an article about all of these people, because I just think that's something that's not known about in San Diego.
Thank you.
Nancy, Nancy, you didn't mention the guy with, God, I had his name a minute ago and I dropped it. Who did the Presidio?
Are you talking about Roland Hoyt?
No.
You're talking about Marston.
Yeah, Marston. There we go. Thank you.
Well, Kate Sessions and Marston were very good friends, and they were collaborators in so many of the projects for the park and the preservation of the park. They served together on the Park Improvement Committee at one point. So she and Marston were very close. I didn't include him in this talk because I don't think of him as someone who was actually a horticultural contact. I mean, he was interested in horticulture, but their real contact was a civic endeavor, preserving the park, improving the city, planting in the city. So it was much more civic improvement work that they did together.
And then her nephew,
Milton.
He became a garden designer. I can't think of the word. Architecture guy. He worked on Marston Heights, right? I mean, some of the houses there.
Yeah, there's a little street over there that he developed, actually. Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
Mm-hmm. This is Milton Sessions, who was Kate's brother's son. So Frank's son, Milton.
Hi, this is Heather. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm curious about Sessions' interactions with the E.W. Scripps family, or the Scripps family in general, particularly around Scripps Ranch.
It's really funny that you would ask me about that, because just recently I've gotten my hands on a copy of a letter that Kate Sessions wrote to E.W. Scripps. Well, Sessions actually was very friendly with Ellen Scripps, who was the older half-sister of E.W. Scripps. And she sold items from her nursery to both of them, and she did the garden design for Ellen Scripps up in La Jolla when Ellen Scripps built that house. But one of the most important things that Kate Sessions did for E.W. Scripps was to send him an incredible worker. This young man came to town, Mr. Chauncey Jarabek, right out of, I think it was Indiana or Illinois, one of those places. Ate oranges until he was sick the first day he was here. And then he found out he had, been a gardener, and he found out about Kate Sessions and went to visit her to see if she had any work for him. She did not have work, but she said she would recommend him to E.W. Scripps. So she sent Chauncey Jarabek up there, and he is the one who did all that eucalyptus planting and took care of the gardens around the E.W. Scripps home on the ranch. So they knew each other over a number of years. E.W. Scripps was a very cranky guy. I don't know if you've read very much about him. So he had his whole ideas about how Balboa Park should be developed, and he just wanted to give them all the trees it would take to turn Balboa Park into a forest. The park board didn't want to do that. He was very irritated that they didn't take his advice. But anyway, Kate Sessions asked him if he was interested in supporting the tree hunting expedition, the plant hunting expedition that she and Mr. Brandagees went on. So she actually appealed to him to see if he would help support this scientific endeavor. He did give money to scientific projects. That's all I know. Is that helpful?
Thank you. Yes, that's great stuff. I appreciate it.
Nancy,
Yes.
this is National Suffragette Month. Did she, Kate, have a connection to the movement here in San Diego as part of her civic endeavor?
Well, you know, she definitely thought women should get the right to vote. And I have read that she addressed a suffragette meeting one time, but I have never, ever been able to find documentation that that's a fact. But knowing Kate Sessions, there is no doubt in the world about her adherence to the suffrage movement.
Thank you.
How do we get to ask a question?
Yes.
I'm curious because Kate Sessions was instrumental in bringing eucalyptus to San Diego. Do you think, or did you come across any inkling that there would be the maligned consideration for them today in so many ways? And I know that she brought many, many different kinds, and I know differently, but most people don't.
Well, I've been asked this question many times, especially as, you know, in recent years, as eucalyptus have gotten such a bad reputation. And my answer is always the same. Kate Sessions was an experimental horticulturalist. And one of the things about experimental horticulture with trees is you don't know how long it's going to take to know the value of a tree and whether keeping a certain type of tree was a good plan or not. So I think if Kate Sessions felt that a tree was not going to be good for San Diego, she wouldn't have any problems with us not planting it anymore. But I think at the time that all of those eucalyptus were being planted, they were kind of a miracle for Balboa Park because the park was so barren and a eucalyptus tree could be established. It wouldn't take very much water. It would grow tall. It was a skyline tree. So, you know, they were very valuable in the early days of developing the park.
Thank you.
Any more questions? If not, let's all thank Nancy for a fabulous presentation.
You're very welcome, everyone.
And next month, the second Monday of the month, we will have another Zoom event. We're still working on the event itself. Just be looking for your newsletter and your invitations via our.
Tell you a little bit about it.
Okay.
I'm friends with some musicians that are from San Diego, and the meeting is going to be a horticultural concert. The musicians are doing the music part, not me, and I am presenting the plants that'll be in the songs. So if you've ever heard of Nickel Creek or Watkins Family Hour or any of Fiction Family, any of that, it's Dominique Arciero and Sean Watkins, her husband, that will be doing the music, and it'll be from my stage, my porch, the presentation, and I really look forward to you all coming to the concert.
Okay. Thanks, Karen. See, she knows more than I, but she's the president, not me. So that
Karen?
sounds very exciting. That'll be a first for our society to have a
Karen?
musical
Yeah?
event.
When's your garden tour going to go online? Tour of your garden.
Well, you know, they've soon.
No, it's filmed. I keep waiting for
Yeah,
it.
so it's being edited. It was actually filmed twice because there was audio corruption because of wind and everything being outside. So they did it again, and then they came back to do still shots of some of the plants. And so it's in the editing, and I'm hoping that it's finished editing soon, and we'll send out a special e-blast if it goes up so that you can know to look for it. And then Jennifer is arranging for the filming of other gardens. So there's also other filming going on, but mine's the first one that will be edited and up.
Okay. So good things are happening. We
Yeah.
have this pandemic going on, but that's not stopping us. So we're trying to continue our activities, and we appreciate all of your support and hope to see you next month. We had, as I said, a high watermark of 93 people, and that's a very good showing. So thank you all very much.
Nancy, you need to know that the comments are just absolutely effusive, just how thankful everyone is for.
Oh, I'm so appreciative.
Amazing. I'm trying to save this chat so that I can send it to you.
Oh, that would be lovely.
So that you can see just how many people are just over the moon with what you told them.
Well, let me say, I'm going to stay on for a while. So if anyone does have a question and you want to remain on and ask me, I'm happy to wait.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'll just let everyone sign off.
What happened to the succulents in the garden that was destroyed off Park Avenue?
You know, I have no idea. I always wonder if some of them were rescued for the current desert garden, but I really don't know. I've been researching that, and I'm going to be doing more research on it, but sometimes it's just really hard to find any factual information about this sort of thing. So I'm on the case. Maybe I'll have an answer to that at some point. I'm not sure that when they got ready to widen the street, they were very respectful of what was there.
I see Robin holding up the book. Can I tell a bad story about stealing a plant?
Give a plug. Everybody get it. It's wonderful.
All right.
Come on.
So the second succulent garden, or the one that's behind the adobe, I forget the name of the adobe in Balboa Park, that was Kate Sessions did that one as well, I believe.
You mean the cactus garden?
The cactus garden.
Behind the Balboa Park Club?
Yeah, behind Balboa Park, that's right. And about 15 years ago, I was walking through there and homeless people were living in it, and they'd torn out there was this huge clump of a particular aloe, and they'd torn some of them out, and I took one. And I now have a large clump.
Well, good news about that cactus garden. It has suffered so much neglect over the years. And within the last year, the Balboa Park Conservancy took an interest in that, and they have a donor who has actually contributed a great deal of money, and they have done a wonderful rehabilitation of that garden. So if you haven't been through it in a while, it's worth going over for a look.
I'll have to check it out.
Nancy, I believe Nan Sturman got a group together to rehabilitate it during a work session.
Yeah, I think the Conservancy invited her into the project, and they had this funding elsewhere. So yeah. It's wonderful to see that garden preserved. You know, Kate Sessions is such an iconic figure, and she has such a close connection to that garden.
They did invite Nan. They had a donor who wanted to rehabilitate the garden, and they invited Nan to come in. And so she did a lot of work with the pots, the beautiful big pots that welcome you as you enter into
they're lovely.
the garden.
All right, is there anything else? Maybe it's time to say goodbye. We've been at it for a while now.
Good night, everyone. Thanks for
Okay.
coming.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night and
so much. It
goodbye.
was a
Good night. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.